Hey again everyone. For today's Pintober video, today is October 2nd, I'm going to make a tartine sourdough bread, like a country loaf. And I'm really excited. I've been playing around with sourdough for a couple of years now, and I actually have two starters. I have a regular flour and water starter, and then I also have a potato flake starter. Maybe I'll do something with that later on in the month, but this one is my traditional flour and water starter. And I didn't show this last night because it was so late when I was doing this and I was exhausted, and the kitchen was a mess. I didn't want to show you that. But I fed the starter last night to get enough for this morning to start this bread. And so let me show this to you. I'm doing grams with this recipe. Usually I do ounces, but this one calls for grams. I fed it last night with 50 grams of my regular starter, 50 grams of rye flour, and 50 grams of water. And then let it sit out overnight to rise up and bubble. And when I looked at it this morning, I thought, oh no, my starter didn't work with this rye flour. Even though when I originally made my starter, I started it off with rye flour. But I thought, there's something about the rye flour, it didn't work. Maybe it needs longer with rye than it does with regular all-purpose, because I didn't see any bubbles. It had definitely doubled in size, or maybe even more than what it was last night, but it didn't bubble up. And then I happened to notice on the bottom, oh yes, it did bubble up. Hope you can see all that. Look at all of those bubbles underneath there on the back side. So for some reason it just didn't poof up and bubble on the top, but it is most definitely active. So let me grab my bowl and my scale and get this on. And as I said, I'm doing grams, so I'm going to do this off camera because I can't do this with one hand. I'm going to put 100 grams 100 grams of my starter into the bowl, along with 250 grams of water, and then I mix that together. So I'll get those in the bowl and I'll be right back. Okay, I have my 100 grams of starter and 250 grams of water in my bowl, and I also added some caraway seeds, a teaspoon. I'm going to use part rye flour, part white flour to do this. And my husband likes rye bread with caraway seeds, so you know what? It's my kitchen, my food, my family. That's what I'm going to do. I did have probably about 50% of what I used of the starter left over, so I'm going to put this in a mason jar, a small jar, like maybe a half-pint jar or something, and see if I can use it for something else. Maybe I'll make another recipe of this tomorrow if we really like it, and then I could make two. But I hate to waste anything, so I'm going to keep it, and if I don't use it, if it doesn't work, then I'll toss it. And I'll just try to be a little more exact. Maybe I will use, see, my starter, everything is different in everybody's kitchen, so my starter rises at a little bit more than what it's supposed to. Maybe I keep it too hot in here or something. But instead of doubling in size, mine always kind of goes a little bit more. For example, if I need a cup of starter, I need to feed 3 ounces of starter with 3 ounces of flour and 3 ounces of water, and that will get me 8 ounces of ripe starter, fed starter. So I guess the same principle is applying here with this rye flour. So I don't know, my kitchen's weird, or maybe I'm just weird. But anyway, okay, so then you stir this together, but you guys already knew that I was weird. Alright, stir this all together and dissolve the starter into the water. Come on now. I guess I should have been stirring when I was talking, but sometimes I can't do 2 things at once. Despite what I tell my husband. We argue all the time because he wants my attention when I'm trying to do 2 things at once. And he said, I'm trying to talk to you. I want to tell you something. And I said, I can listen and do this too. And we just won't show him this video because I just proved that I can't talk and stir at the same time. It's going to be one of those Sundays. And I may have even said that it was Saturday earlier. I don't know. But it's not. It's Sunday, October 2nd. And the Tennessee Vols won yesterday. Sorry, Ugga. But we were happy here in Tennessee. Okay, so this looks like it is pretty well dissolved. So I'm going to start with the flour. And I'm going to get back on my scale because I do need to weigh this. So let me put you down and then I'll bring you right back. Okay, I guess I should have opened the rye flour while I was off camera, but I didn't, so I'll do that now. Okay, my next part of my recipe calls for 450 grams of plain flour, also known as AP flour, all-purpose. My mom and grandmother and all always called it plain flour as opposed to self-rising flour, because flour in my house was self-rising. And if you said flour, you were talking about that. You were not talking about all-purpose flour. It gets a little confusing when you're trying to convert grandma and aunt's recipes. You have to keep that in mind. Okay, 450 grams of flour. Oh, let's see, where am I now? I can't see through the... It's dark down there. Okay, 250 or 246. So let's keep going. 289. Oh, goodness. Here we go. This is the way to go. Just, except when you do this. It's one of those mornings. Okay. 340.76. There we go. You know what? I'll bring you back when I have this in there. I am making a huge mess all over my table that I just cleaned. I'll be back. Okay, this is my flour addition, and it's 450 grams of all-purpose flour and 50 grams of rye flour. The recipe that I was going from just called for whole wheat, but I happened to use all of my whole wheat flour in something else last week, and I didn't get any more because I thought I had another jar of it, but I didn't. So I thought, I want to do the rye, so that's what I'm doing. And here we go. So, and then my lovely husband came out a few minutes ago and brought me coffee. It's probably too hot to drink. I'll spill it all over me. But I had made coffee earlier, but I'd been so... I've been concentrating so much on trying not to make a mess in the kitchen that I didn't pour myself any. So he poured me some coffee. Okay, so now you stir this all together. And you'll notice there's no salt in here. You don't do that yet. I was really confused when I was first reading this recipe because, well, actually I saw it on a video. And then I saw it, I found it on Pinterest, and then saw the video, and I was like, where's the salt? You have to have salt in bread. But that comes later. So this seems really, really dry. But I got the measurements right. You know, I've always had to use a little bit more liquid in my breads than sometimes what recipes call for. So I'm going to try to mix this together. It's supposed to make like a shaggy dough. But it seems really, really dry. I mean, there's no moisture in here at all at the bottom. And it's just all flour here at the top. So I'm going to just keep going. If I add more add more water, I'll bring you back. But I'm going to try to get this mixed up and try to follow the recipe. Maybe it's the rye flour that I used is absorbing more of the water than whole wheat would have. So yeah, if I have to add a little more water, I'll feel okay about it, but I'm going to try not to. So I'm going to get this together and I'll bring you right back. Okay, I wanted to bring you back for just a second. I gave up on using the spatula, and this is not shaggy at all. So yes, I'm going to add some more water because see all this flour down here that still hasn't been incorporated. So I'm not going to weigh it because I'm going to show you really more by texture. So let me do that and I will bring you back. It's hard to do this with one hand. Okay, I did add some more water to this, and this is what I would call a shaggy dough. It's still really kind of hard in the center in some places, and I'm thinking that that's probably because of the rye flour. But I don't want to add any more water at this point in time because I will be adding more water later on in the process, and I can get the flour, I think I can get it right later on. The main thing now is for the flour to absorb the work. Oops. So I'm going to put some plastic wrap over it and cover it or set it aside for between 30 minutes and an hour, and we'll see how it does then, and I will bring you back. While I'm waiting for the flour to absorb the water in my tartine loaf, I wanted to show you the funniest looking loaves I've ever made. This one looks like a mushroom. These are the potato flake starter breads, and obviously I let them overrise, especially this one. This is like this looks like Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. But look at this. That's so funny. Oh gosh, that's hilarious. And this one has the same thing. But you know what? This one's got a little bit of a hump too. They'll still be delicious, and I'm about to break into one of them, but I just thought this was hilarious. Bloop. Nope. Bloop. I'll keep you down. No, I want to come up. Go down. No. Okay, I'm a bit silly. So I'm going to cut into one of these and I'll show you what it tastes like. Or what it tastes. How am I going to show you what it tastes like? Oh my gosh, Jess. I'll show you what it looks like. And I'll tell you what it tastes like because I'm going to eat one. Okay, I know you're supposed to let them cool, but I never do. Just cut into Baby Bear here, and look how soft and pillowy. And here's one. This is my breakfast. That's so good. It's sweet. It's not sour. There's so much sugar in the potato flake starter that it gives a really nice sweetness to the bread, and it has no overpowering sour taste like sometimes true sourdoughs can. And I think that's what my husband really kind of finds offensive about sourdough. He's not a big fan. I'm starting to win him over though. But this, everybody loves. This is what my mom made when I was growing up, and she still makes it now and gives everybody a loaf at Christmas. But she lets her starter die, and so I made my starter and gave her some. So I'm going to eat the rest of this, and I might even have another slice. And sorry, and try to hide this from the rest of my family so that they won't know that I have it. But it's delicious. Okay, I have let my dough rest for about 45 minutes, between 45 minutes and 50 minutes. I kind of lost track of time at the beginning. So the next step is to add the salt and a little bit more water and work that in. But first, I wanted to see what it feels. It's really kind of sticky, and I think that's the way it's supposed to be. We'll see. Okay, so you add, I've already measured this out. It's 10 grams of salt and 25 grams of water, and then you just kind of squish everything together and mix the salt in. And it feels like now it's not as sticky as it was. See, it was sticking to my hands. I guess it's the extra water. Feels like there are not very many dry clumps of flour. Feels like everything's been absorbed. That's a good thing. If you've ever made this before, I am wondering something. And maybe it's in the book. I'll try to find that book, maybe at the library or something. It's a book called Tartine, I believe. I'll try to find the author. But anyway, I was wondering, could you not dissolve the salt in the water and then mix it in? I would think that, because see, I'm feeling sandiness as I'm mixing this together, and I would think that the salt would disperse through the bread much easier if it were dissolved in the water. But that's just a question that I have. Okay, so I'm going to mix this in and then cover it again and let it sit for 30 minutes, and then I will bring you back for the next step, which is the folding. Oops. Okay, my timer just went off, and I'm getting ready to do the first turn of my dough. And let me get the plastic off. You're supposed to do a turn every 30 minutes. And some of the videos that I have seen, people do that for like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I'm not sure if there's a certain rhyme or reason for it. I think they've just been going on texture and feel of the dough. So first step is you wet your hands, and then you just come in and you kind of pull it up and back towards you. See, it's still a little sticky, but this is what starts to develop the gluten in the bread. I'm going to keep my hands a little wetter. Okay, and then you pull it up and then just fold it over on top of itself. I don't think you're supposed to pull it all the way up like that, but and that's it. The first time they said, one of the videos that I saw said the first couple of turns it's okay to manhandle it a little bit, press it down, and then as you go on, it will be a little easier, and you'll need to be a little easier with the dough. So you can see it's not sticking to my hands that much, just a little. And so I think that's all you do, and just turn the bowl over and you do that. I'm going to cover it back up, and I've written down, doing little tick marks for how many times I turn it. So I'm going to cover this up and set my timer for 30 minutes. And I will be back then. That's not my finger. That's the strap of my phone case. You thought I was doing something I shouldn't, didn't you? Okay, I am back for turn number 5, and this is getting to be a really long video, and I'm sorry, but oh wow, it might be just about done, or the dough might be. This is really kind of pillowy, and it is just barely sticking, and I think I don't know. I think I'm going to do one more turn in half an hour and then see how it is. But I'm thinking it's probably ready to start shaping. So, we're almost done. I'll bring you back in half an hour. Okay, I am back, and I did not film my last step, but I'll tell you what I did. I have the dough under here. I took it out of the bowl and did another fold like I've been doing, and then put a little flour on here. It's not quite as tacky as it used to be, and just let it, and shaped it into a ball, and then let it rest for 20 minutes. Now, I don't have a banneton, so I've done this with other breads before. I have just a plastic bowl, and I've lined it with a kitchen towel, and that has some, like a terry cloth towel that has the stripes on it, which makes it a really pretty design, and I've coated that with flour. So what I'm going to do is just shape this into a ball again and transfer it to here, and then cover it and let it rise for 3 hours. You can also put it in the refrigerator and let it rise overnight, and they say that that gives it a really, really good flavor, but I'm not going to do that because I want to eat it tonight, but with what we're having for dinner. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to bake it. Okay, folks, I am back with the final rise. I have had my bread sitting on the stove in a warm spot for the last 3 hours, and it has risen beautifully. I'm going to take this off very gently so I don't deflate it. I should have sprayed it. Usually I spray the top of my bread just very lightly with oil, or maybe a little flour, sprinkle a little flour on there to keep it from sticking, but it doesn't look like it did too much damage. Besides, I'm about to dump it out into the pot. For the last 30 minutes, I have had my Dutch oven, my cast iron Dutch oven, in the oven, with the oven preheating to 500 degrees. So I'm not going to do this on camera because in the last month or so I gave myself a nasty burn by taking some cornbread out of the oven, so I'm not going to even run the risk with this one. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the cast iron Dutch oven out of the oven and then dump this upside down, flip it into the pot, and then score the top in probably 4 places, and then put the lid on, reduce the heat to 450 degrees, and then bake the bread for 30 minutes, and then take the top off, and I think bake for another 15 to 20 minutes. I'll have to look at the times, but that's the procedure. I will show you what it looks like when we get a little further along. Okay, ignore my burned up burner covers. We have a tendency of turning the wrong burner on sometimes. The kids and I both do, and Ron. So I've taken the bread out of the oven for the first 30 minutes, and I'm going to take the lid off and then put it back in the oven. So this is the first time I've seen it, and you're going to see it at the same time. And by the way, when I was preheating it, I left the lid on when I had it in the oven. Don't do that. I had a really hard time getting the lid off of it because of the pressure that had built up in it. So leave the lid off, heat it up next to it in the rack, or just leave the lid a little bit ajar if you want to leave the lid on. Okay, so here we go. Let's take the lid off and see what it looks like. Oh, wow! This may be done sooner than 30 minutes. It's beautiful. It's brown. It's got that steam built up. So I'm going to put it in for about another 15 minutes, and then I'm going to check the temperature. The bread should be 210 degrees on the inside when it's done. So I'm going to put it back in here with the lid off so it can get nice and even browner, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, here is my beautiful loaf. It is cool now. I did just bake it for another 15 minutes, and it came out gorgeous. I didn't really want it to get as dark as some of them that I've seen on YouTube and Pinterest, but I did want it to get a nice brown. And this turned out to be a happy surprise. Right here, the bread actually stuck to the towel, and when I pulled it off, it fell back down like that, and it actually turned out to be pretty. So I'm going to cut a slice, and we'll see how it tastes. Okay, here's a little slice of it. It's got a beautiful texture, really nice and soft, lots of holes, and nice crispy crust. So I'm going to put just a little bit of butter on it and see what it tastes like. Oh, that is very, very good. Yeah, definitely going to be making this again. Probably tomorrow, because we'll eat all of this tonight. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. You know the drill. Thanks again. Thanks so much for watching. Fly high, Pooh Bear.